When we have in-person classes and we have students seated in our classrooms, there's a lot that happens by virtue of being together that is difficult to replicate in an online environment where our students are spread out over various locations and we don't have a common time for us to get together as a class, as a group. So the purpose of tonight is to, first of all, help you connect to our resources, understand what the expectations are, and also to see the community of learners that you are a part of. So again, before you log off tonight, make sure that in the chat of this Zoom call that you give us your name, your instructor's name, as well as the course that you're enrolled in so that we can report your attendance back to your instructor. So we'll start by just outlining who is intended to be part of this call. We are offering different orientations for different groups of classes. So this particular Zoom call is for students who are in any of the following three courses, either MAT 1100, which is our intermediate math for liberal arts, the MGF 1106, which is liberal arts math, or MGF 1107, our explorations in math. We do have several instructors who teach these online courses, so you may be with Professor Terrell, Professor Laster, Professor Keith, or Dr. Slack for your course. Some of the information, most of the information tonight will be general enough to apply to all of the courses, but just know that there might be some subtle differences between what each of your instructors expects. So you want to make sure that you always refer back to your course syllabus and communicate directly with your instructor for clarification about any expectations or policies. So let's start with overall course expectations when you're taking a math class online. Again, trying to draw the contrast between being in a course that meets in person in a traditional classroom, the instruction is very apparent. The instruction is through whatever lecture the instructor has prepared, whatever class activities you're working on in the classroom, and that doesn't translate into the online environment directly. However, instruction is part of your course. When you're taking an online math course, you will need to set aside time to work through the instructional part of your course. I've taught online for many years. I think the first class I taught was back in 2009. So I've worked with a lot of students over the years. And the one mistake I see students repeating over and over and over again in an online math class is that they jump straight into the assignments. They're trying to submit things and they haven't made time to work through the instruction. You have to do that before you're expected to apply any knowledge, right? You can't apply what you have not received instruction on. The classes are asynchronous, which means that you are going to be working through that instruction at whatever time you designate for yourself. There's no common time for the class to come together for instruction. There are no class meetings. So there's a lot of flexibility as to when you're going to be working in the course, but you're going to have to structure your time to designate when you're going to be working through the asynchronous instruction. Some instructors post lecture videos that they've recorded themselves, other post videos that have been recorded by their colleagues, but there will be resources for you to work through the instruction. Online courses do have set due dates for assignments, and there will be certain dates designated for testing, and students are expected to adhere to those dates. Our online courses are not self-paced courses. You don't work through the course at whatever pace is comfortable for you. Now, there is a lot of flexibility as to how you use your time throughout the days and the weeks, but everybody will have to conform to certain due dates, right? Those flagpoles that will keep you at pace to finish the course before the end of the semester. So please make sure that you're looking at your syllabus in your Canvas course and that you are making note of those important due dates so that you can structure your time to meet those deadlines and not be penalized for any missing work. In an online setting, the advantage is you have great flexibility. And one of the challenges is that you don't have a lot of structure other than the structure that you impose on yourself. So we encourage you to get a calendar where you designate days of the week and times in the day that you're going to dedicate to this course. It is human nature to wait until the very last moment to do things that are not high priority for us. This class should be a high priority uh, goal for you. So, for example, you might designate Tuesday evenings from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. to be class time for you, because that's a time that works well for you. And then maybe on Thursdays, you're going to dedicate from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Those 4 hours are going to be to work on just your course and nothing else. I have found that students who just say, oh, I'm going to, find time, tend to not find time. You need to schedule yourself to hold yourself accountable to how you're going to work through this course. If you're waiting until, let's say, a Sunday night when things are due, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to get it done on Sunday. Murphy's Law, something's going to happen that Sunday where you get pulled to other things, and then you're not going to be able to meet those expectations. So please be proactive in scheduling yourself for how you're going to get those hours in each week, and it will make for much better learning, and it'll make for more success. Academic honesty is expected at all times, and we want to be clear about what academic honesty is. That means that whatever expectations your instructor has set for what materials you can use or can't use, any collaboration that is allowed or not allowed, that you're meeting those expectations. For example, most instructors, when it comes to homework assignments and the part where you're practicing, they allow you to use resources such as notes and calculators and call a friend and maybe even sit together and work with a classmate. And that's actually allowed and encouraged when it comes to homework. But in some cases, when it comes to quizzes, some instructors will give you a lot of flexibility as to what you can use, and others will be a little bit more specific about what they don't want you to use. And certainly when it comes to tests or exams, then that's when it's pretty universal that outside resources are not allowed. Only specific calculators are allowed. So if you're using the wrong type of calculator, that would be considered academic dishonesty. If you're using, let's say, a formula sheet that wasn't approved, that would be considered academic dishonesty. So certainly when it comes to tests and exams, you want to make sure that you're meeting the expectations as to what is allowed and, more importantly, what is not. Cell phones are a big offender. Anytime we have a cell phone in the testing area, that automatically can be grounds for suspecting dishonesty. So make things easier for yourself by just removing anything that's not authorized from your testing space and then acting honestly through those assessments. There are consequences for students who do violate this expectation, and those consequences are outlined in your course syllabus as well as our student code of conduct for the college. Our dean of students is responsible for communicating with students who have been reported for academic dishonesty. All of our testing is proctored with audio and visual surveillance, and we do have recordings that, unfortunately, from time to time, we do have to submit to our dean of students as evidence that academic dishonesty has occurred. So just know that if you're acting honestly, there's nothing to worry about. We want you to just do very well in your exams, but we highly discourage you from attempting any type of cheating. In terms of technology for these courses, you will be allowed to use a scientific calculator, but it must not have a graphing screen. So scientific, but non-graphing calculator. Here are some examples of what we use at our facilities. These are Texas Instruments versions. They don't have to be Texas Instruments. They can be Casio, Nokia, other brands. And these are not very expensive. Scientific calculator depends on where you purchase it, but we're definitely looking under $20, sometimes, $10, $11, $12, depending on if you get a good deal. Okay. For your courses, you will want to have a reliable desktop or laptop computer. I know there's a lot of different options for devices that connect to the internet and that connect to our different systems. But we have found that Chromebooks, cell phones, tablets just don't have enough technology and capabilities to fully give you what you need to run the online course. So whether it be a desktop or a laptop, that's what we encourage you to have to complete your course. And of course, you will need to have reliable Wi-Fi connection to be able to connect to your course and complete assignments and go through the instruction and do your tests. Especially in certain parts of Lake and Sumter counties, there are parts where Wi-Fi is an issue. And so if you're in an area where Wi-Fi is just not very reliable, make sure that you have a plan for where you're going to go to find a good connection. We do offer free Wi-Fi at our college, at all of our locations, and our Wi-Fi does extend out into the parking areas as well. So if all else fails, you can always come to one of our campuses to use our Wi-Fi. We also have, of course, Wi-Fi in our libraries and learning centers. Canvas is the learning management system that we use at Lake Sumter State College. So all of our courses use Canvas as a platform. And then within math, we use a Pearson online system called My Math Lab, which is where the textbook lives for your course, as well as your assignments and as well as your tests, your assessments. These two systems are separate. So one of the first things you'll need to do is to connect these two systems so that they are talking to each other. You will have instructions for how to link Canvas to My Math Lab, and those will be provided in your Canvas course. So make sure that you do this as soon as possible so that you can start working in your course right away. The My Math Lab portion does require an access code, which you will need to purchase either through one of our bookstores or you can also purchase it with a credit card online through the appropriate link in your Canvas course. And if you are a dual enrollment student, then your county will be providing you with that access code. Regardless of how you are obtaining the access code, all students have a 14-day temporary access that allows you to start working right away so that you don't fall behind. And when you do finally get the permanent access code, you'll just need to enter it to update your access and to make sure that there's no interruption in your work. So we do want all students working right away, even if they don't have their permanent access code. When it comes to testing, all of our classes have several tests per semester. On average, you can expect about 5 tests per course. The MAT 1100 course is a little different. That one has fewer tests. But for the MGF 1106 and MGF 1107, you can expect 5 tests throughout the semester. If you are in Dr. Slack's class, Professor Terrell's class, or Professor Laster's classes, you're going to have 2 different options for taking your tests. If you are in Mr. Keefe's class, then he only is offering one option, and that is using ProctorU. So for the next portion of our orientation, we're going to talk about these 2 groups. So Mr. Keefe, ProctorU only. All the other instructors, you can use ProctorU or test on campus, and we'll go through the details in the next few slides. So if you're in a class with Dr. Slack, Ms. Terrell, or Ms. Laster, the highly preferred method for testing is to test in person at one of our college testing centers. We have a testing center at the South Lake campus in Building 2, room 209, and our other testing center is at the Leesburg campus in the Center for Teaching and Learning building. To be able to test in person, you must make an appointment. We recommend a week before your testing window. In an online course, instructors tend to give 2 or 3 days for you to be able to complete your test. And so you'll want to make sure that you know what those dates are that you're expected to do the test in, and that you make the appointments in advance through our testing centers. The instructions are going to be in your Canvas course. If you forget and you don't make an appointment, you'll see that you cannot make an appointment within 24 hours of the exam. The system will not allow that. At that point, you're going to find yourself scrambling and trying to come in person anyway. So just be proactive so that you don't give yourself unnecessary stress. There are three test times per day. You can start testing at 9 a.m., you can start testing at 1 p.m., or you can start testing at either 4:30 p.m. or 5 p.m. That's our evening slot. Now, when you go to make your appointments, it's going to actually show you a window. So it's going to say you can test between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m., between 9 and noon. That's the morning slot. You are expected to arrive by 9 a.m. It's not an open window where you can drop in anytime in that 3-hour window. It starts at 9. Most tests will go for about an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 30 minutes, but there are some tests in other departments that are 3-hour exams. That's why they have a 3-hour window. But everyone arrives at the beginning of the testing window. So if you're making an appointment for the 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. appointment slot, again, you're expected to arrive by 1 p.m. The only exception to that is for our evening appointments. If you are working and just cannot make it to one of the testing centers by 4:30 or 5, then that's the only time that you can arrive later in that window. But you will need to make a note, a comment when you make your appointment, letting the testing staff know that you will be arriving late, and you're going to tell them exactly what time you plan to arrive so that they are aware that you will be arriving a little later. Please, please, please make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to finish the test before that testing center closes. So for example, if the testing center is due to close at 7:30 p.m. and you have a test that is an hour and 30 minutes, then arriving at 6:30 is not going to be enough for you to have ample time to finish your test. When the testing center closes, it closes whether or not you're finished with your test. So just beware that if you are going to be arriving later because you have other commitments, that you want to arrive at least at a time where you're going to have the whole time to complete the test. The testing centers do have cameras that monitor and record all our testing areas, like we said earlier. And unfortunately, on occasion, we do have to submit that evidence to our Dean of Students for dishonesty. So just be honest and you won't have anything to worry about. The other testing option for all classes, and the only option for Mr. Keefe's class, is to test online using a program called ProctorU. So I want to reiterate, this is going to be the only option for that MGF 1107 course that Mr. Keefe is teaching, but this is a second option for all the other 3 instructors. So what is ProctorU? ProctorU allows you to take your test anywhere you have good Wi-Fi. So it can be at home. You don't have to physically come to campus. But you are going to be proctored, and in order for us to properly proctor your exam, you will need an external webcam. Right now, I'm using the webcam that's integrated into my laptop, so all you're able to see is my face and the occasional hand waving. But for us to properly monitor your test, you will need an external webcam, something that you can hold in your hand and position in such a way that it is looking at your workspace. And we'll show you some examples in just a moment. The external webcams connect to your device via a USB connection, and they can be held in your hand, moved around, and positioned in a lot of different ways. External webcams may be still available at one of our learning centers to be checked out if you don't want to purchase one. They are not super expensive. You can buy, a good external webcam online for about $20 or less. If you don't want to buy one or you can't buy one, you might be able to borrow one from a friend since it's for limited use. You're only going to be using it for the exams. But again, you can check with our learning centers to see if they still have some available to loan out. To use ProctorU for your test, you're going to also need to make an appointment in advance, and the instructions for how to make your appointments are all available in your Canvas courses. So make sure you're giving yourself enough time to work through those instructions so that you understand how to set up those appointments. Unlike the in-person test, there's more flexibility in terms of the times that you can test using ProctorU. They actually have appointments available very, very early in the morning, all the way until much later at night. I think the last appointments are sometime around the 10 p.m. mark. So it does have more times available that you can test. However, those appointments, you're competing for those nationwide, because ProctorU proctors tests for colleges and universities all over the United States. So it's not just Lake Sumter State College students who are trying to make appointments. You're going to need to be proactive in making those appointments well in advance, and certainly within 3 days of the test. If you cannot find an available appointment in ProctorU and your test is coming up, then the only other option for you to take that test is to come on campus at one of our testing centers to test in person. The testing dates and times are set by your instructor. Again, typically they give you 2 or 3 days for each test for you to complete it. Please don't wait until the last moment of the last day to try to take your test, because if you do that, there's a good possibility that you're not going to find an appointment. If you are testing online, you will need to print your work paper from Canvas before your test, and you will also need to scan and upload your written work into Canvas once you submit your test. And that scanning and uploading has to happen within the first 10 minutes after you submit your test in my math lab. You do have instructions in your Canvas course for how to scan and upload your work, and I do recommend that you practice doing this with kind of a dummy assignment before your first test. You don't want your first test to be where you figure out how to do all these technical things. There are a lot of scanning apps on that are free that you can download on your smartphone, and they also make it really easy for you to upload your work to the Canvas student app on your phone. And that's what I would recommend. Do not go buy a scanner. You don't need any expensive equipment to do the scanning. Your smartphone will do. When you use ProctorU, you will have a live proctor who will be entering the password for you. And I'm going to keep talking while I plug in my computer, who is about to die. So you will be interacting with a live proctor who is going to enter the password for you, and who will be checking your photo ID and making sure that everything's working properly for you to take your test. They will also be checking to make sure you're using an approved calculator and that you have no written notes. ProctorU does also have audio and visual surveillance, and they do record everything that you're doing. So just beware that if you're acting honestly, you have nothing to worry about. But if you're acting dishonestly, there will be a record of it. Here are some examples of why we require an external webcam for our testing. In these pictures, you see how the external webcam is positioned so that we can look at your entire workspace. We need to be able to look at you as if you were sitting in one of our classrooms. We need to see what calculator you're using. We need to see your computer screen and your keyboard, what your hands are doing, making sure that there's no unapproved materials in your workspace. And so the computer webcam that is, the webcam that's integrated just doesn't have the ability to give us this perspective. All right, let's talk about tutoring and support. So you're learning online and it might feel like you're out there all on your own, but we do have tutors available to connect with you to give you the support you need to succeed in the course. And we do have virtual tutoring via the link that you see here on this slide. And the link is also going to be available in your Canvas course, so you don't have to write it down or try to copy it. But we do want to kind of give you an idea of what this looks like when you click on the link. It'll bring you to this page, and then you'll see some information about tutoring as well as the available times for those virtual tutors. We highly recommend that you organize yourself at home, that you have a dedicated binder and a dedicated notebook for your math class. The more organized students are, typically the better they perform because they know what's coming, they know where to find materials that they've worked on before. There's going to be quite a bit of work that you're going to be uploading to Canvas, so it's very useful for you to have a place where everything can be found. And with that, I want to remind you to enter your name, your professor's name, and the class that you're enrolled in the chat so that we can record your attendance and give that information to your instructor. And at this point, I would like to open the floor to any questions that you may have. You can also ask questions out loud. You don't have to ask them in the chat. I muted myself because my 3 pups went crazy there for a minute.
And if you guys think of any questions you have after the orientation, feel free to jump into one of the math emporiums. We'll be happy to help you.